Matt Cooper had always dreamed of owning a house by the lake, a place where he could escape the chaos of the city and build a peaceful hideaway for himself and his family. After years of saving, he finally found the perfect property, a secluded yet spacious lake house, slightly worn from years of abandonment, but full of possibilities. The house had been vacant for a long time, deserted by its previous owner, and needed significant repairs. Matt, however, saw it as a goal rather than a problem. He was prepared to invest time and effort into restoring it, turning the old structure into a true home. What he did not expect was that his biggest challenge would not be fixing the house, but dealing with the homeowner association. The first sign of trouble came just days after Matt finalized the purchase. A sleek white Lexus pulled up in front of his property, and out stepped a well-dressed, middle-aged woman with an air of superiority. She was flanked by two other individuals, one of whom carried a clipboard. Matt, who had been unloading supplies from his truck, watched as the woman confidently strutted up his driveway. Mr. Cooper, I presume?" she said, extending a hand she clearly expected him to shake. "Karen Waters. I am the president of the local homeowner association." Matt wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at her with mild curiosity. "I do not recall signing up for a homeowner association." Karen's smile was thin, almost patronizing. "Well, that is the thing," she said smoothly. "This house has been abandoned for quite some time, and our association has been maintaining the neighborhood's look. We assumed it would remain under our jurisdiction." She gestured vaguely toward the lake. "It is important that all properties in the community meet a certain expectation." Matt crossed his arms. "This house is not part of your homeowner association. It was never under your authority?" Karen let out a small dramatic sigh, as if she were dealing with a particularly slow student. "You see, Mr. Cooper, when a property is left vacant for too long, it risks becoming an eyesore. That is why we have rules in place to ensure everything stays up to regulations." "And what does that have to do with me?" Karen tilted her head as if she had not expected any resistance. "Well, for starters, we would like to discuss how we can help integrate you into our community. Of course, that means adhering to our rules, paying the necessary fees, and ensuring the home maintains our expectations." Matt chuckled, shaking his head. "Let me stop you right there. Bought this house outright. It is private property. I am not interested in joining your homeowner association, and I do not owe you anything." For a moment, Karen's expression weakened, but she quickly recovered. Her smile became even more forced. "I understand you are new here, Mr. Cooper, but we are not asking. These are just the regulations. We have the authority to enforce them." Matt took a step forward, his voice steady. "No, you do not. I did my research before buying this place. My property is not under homeowner association control. If the previous owner abandoned it, that is not my problem. You do not have any legal right to demand anything from me." The two individuals behind Karen exchanged glances. Clearly, they were not used to being challenged. Karen pursed her lips, her fingers tightening slightly around the documents she held. "I would hate for there to be any misunderstandings," she said, her voice carrying an unspoken threat. "Then we understand each other perfectly," Matt replied. Karen studied him for a long moment before letting out a small forced chuckle. "Well, I suppose we'll see how things go. Have a lovely day, Mr. Cooper." With that, she turned sharply on her heels and marched back to her Lexus, her two assistants trailing behind her. Matt watched them drive off, a nagging feeling creeping into his gut. He knew the type. People who thrived on dominance, who could not stand being told no. He had no doubt this would not be the last time he saw Karen Waters. Shrugging off the encounter, he went back to unloading supplies, determined not to let a self-important homeowner association president ruin his excitement for the new home. Little did he know, Karen was not just going to walk away. She had already decided that Matt Cooper was going to be her next obstacle to solve. The first encounter with Karen had left Matt with an uneasy feeling, but he was determined not to let some overzealous homeowner association president dictate what he could and could not do with his own property. He focused on the renovations, spending long hours cleaning out debris, replacing old wood panels, and reinforcing the foundation of the dock. However, within days it became clear that the homeowner association was not going to take his rejection lightly. At first, it started with minor disruptions. A few official letters appeared in his mailbox, each bearing the homeowner association's logo and a list of supposed violations. The first one accused him of having an unkempt lawn, despite the fact that most of his yard was still covered in construction materials. The second claimed his unapproved construction required prior approval from the association's architectural committee, something that was, of course, entirely irrelevant, since his property was not part of the homeowner association. Matt tossed the letters into the trash without a second thought. But then things intensified one afternoon as he returned from a trip to the hardware store. He found a group of workers dismantling his old wooden dock. Pieces of wood floated aimlessly on the lake's surface while two men in orange vests loaded debris into a vehicle. Matt slammed his truck door and stormed toward them. "Hey, what the hell do you think you are doing?" One of the workers, a scrawny guy with a clipboard, barely glanced up. Homeowner Association ordered this structure removed. Said it was a danger. Matt clenched his fists trying to keep his temper in check. "This dock is on my property? Who gave you permission?" The worker shrugged. "Talk to Homeowner Association." Matt took a deep breath and then did something that caught everyone off guard. He grabbed a crowbar from his toolbox, walked to the remaining wooden supports, and began violently tearing them out himself. Splinters flew as he hacked away, making sure every remaining piece was either broken or floating in the water. The workers stood stunned, staring at him in disbelief. "Ah, what are you doing?" Matt wiped sweat from his forehead, then grinned, making sure it is really unsafe. "Now get the hell off my property." The workers did not argue. Within minutes, they packed up and left. That night, Matt installed motion-activated cameras around his property. He placed them in key locations near the driveway, at the back entrance, and overlooking the lake. He even put up fake security signs reading 24/7 surveillance. Trespassers will be prosecuted. If the homeowner association thought they could threaten him, they were in for a surprise. The next morning, Matt woke up to an even bigger disaster. Someone had dumped a pile of trash in his front yard. Old tires, broken furniture, and several bags of construction debris. At first, he thought it was just some careless strangers, but then he noticed a printed note stuck to one of the tires. "Maybe if your property looked less like a dump, it would not attract garbage." Homeowner Association. Matt's jaw tightened. These people were really trying to push him. Instead of getting mad, he got even. He loaded all the trash onto his truck and drove straight to the Homeowner Association office, a sleek, modern building located near the entrance to the neighborhood. Without hesitation, he dumped the entire load right in front of the doors, making sure to scatter the bags for full effect. As he climbed back into his truck, the receptionist ran outside, her mouth open. "Sir, what are you doing?" Matt leaned out of his window. "Returning your community's contribution. Tell Karen she forgot to pick up her mess." With that, he drove off. That night, his security cameras caught two shadowy figures sneaking around his house. One of them used a flashlight, scanning the windows while the other tried the back door handle. But before they could go any further, a loud, booming voice came from Matt's newly installed speaker system. "Hey, idiots. Smile for the camera." Both figures bolted. One of them tripped over a bucket, landing face first in the mud. Matt grinned as he watched the footage from his phone. Oh, this was just getting interesting. Matt knew the Homeowner Association would not back down easily, but he had not expected them to increase their actions so quickly. His confrontation with the workers at the pier, the retaliatory trash dump, and his late-night security camera incident had all but confirmed one thing. Karen was not just playing power games. She was making this personal. The next morning, he woke up to find a bright red violation notice zip tied to his gate. It was thicker than before, pages stapled together with official-looking stamps. The first page boldly declared fine. Notice. Multiple violations. Failure to comply will result in legal action. Matt tore through the document. The list of supposed violations had grown ridiculous. Unauthorized fencing modifications. He did not have a fence. Unapproved landscaping choices. His yard was still under construction. Noise disturbances due to improper renovation schedules. He worked. During normal daylight hours, there was also a demand to pay $2,500 in homeowner association back fees, a blatant attempt to scare him into submission. Matt scoffed. He had expected nonsense, but this was on another level. Not long after his phone buzzed an unknown number, he hesitated before answering. Mr. Cooper. Karen's voice was as smooth as ever, but this time, there was an unmistakable sharpness beneath her usual condescending tone. I see you received our notice. Oh, you mean the stack of toilet paper someone zip-tied to my mailbox? Matt said dryly. Karen let out a small laugh, completely unbothered. I admire your stubbornness, but you're making this much harder on yourself than it needs to be. Karen, let me make this simple for you, he interrupted. You have zero authority over my house. You can send all the fake fines you want, but I am not paying a damn penny. There was a pause, and then Karen sighed theatrically. You should really think again, Matt. After all, it would be such a shame if something happened to your home. Matt's grip on the phone tightened. It was subtle, but she had just warned him instead of reacting. He grinned. That almost sounded like a threat, Karen. Oh no, she purred. Just friendly advice. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Cooper. The call ended. Matt exhaled slowly. If she wanted to play dirty, so could he. That afternoon, he took his security system a step further. More cameras, more motion sensors, a direct alert system to his phone. He even added a few fake cameras prominently displayed to make it seem like he had surveillance in every spot. Then he went one step further. He installed hidden wildlife cameras deep in the trees surrounding his property. If anyone tried sneaking around again, they would never even see what caught them. Sure enough, the next night, his security alerts lit up his phone. Two figures were creeping along the side of his house, dressed in dark clothing. Matt, watching the feed, recognized one of them from the trash incident. The other was heavier, moving cautiously, scanning the area. They were planting something. Matt did not wait. He grabbed a high-powered flashlight and stepped out onto his porch. Before they could react, he blinded them with the beam and yelled, "Hey, nice night for trespassing, huh?" The two men panicked. One of them tripped over a garden hose and face-planted into a pile of dirt, scrambling. Like a wounded creature, the bigger one dropped a can of spray paint. It clattered loudly on the wooden deck. Before he took off running, Matt walked over and picked up the can. Red spray paint. They had been about to vandalize his house. He chuckled to himself and waved at the security footage. Hope Karen enjoys the recording. The next morning, Matt was not surprised to find Karen's Lexus parked at the edge of his driveway. Unlike before, she was not flanked by her usual lackeys. This time, she stood alone, her arms crossed, her expression blank. It was a rare sight, Karen without an escort. That meant only one thing. She wanted to make a bargain. Matt took his time approaching, deliberately wiping his hands on a towel as he walked over back. Again so soon? He said, leaning against his truck. Karen gave him a measured grin. Matt, I think we got off on the wrong foot, he chuckled. Pretty sure you put both feet in my affairs first. She ignored the jab, sighing dramatically. Look, I will be honest with you. The homeowner association and I, we do not like conflict. We are all about keeping the community peaceful. So I thought, why fight when we can work together? Matt arched an eyebrow. Oh yeah? And what working together are you thinking of, Karen? Reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a folder. A membership package, she said sweetly. Special offer. If you join the homeowner association now, we'll waive all the fines and in return, we'll help ensure your renovations meet neighborhood standards. Matt slowly took the folder, flipping through the pages. The contract was ridiculous. It demanded monthly fees, required all renovations to be approved, and even dictated what color his house could be painted. Wow, he muttered. This almost looks like blackmail. Oh, wait, it is. Karen's smile twitched, but she kept her voice even. Think of it as an opportunity, Matt. Join us and all this trouble disappears. Matt closed the folder and nodded. You know what? This is a big decision. How about You come inside so we can talk more. Karen's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I thought you would see reason. She followed him onto the porch, stepping inside his living room. The moment she did, Matt casually pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. A clear recording of their conversation played back the part where she admitted that if he joined, his fines would disappear, the implied threat. The blatant coercion. Karen froze. You recorded me, she hissed. Sure did, Matt said, grinning. And I bet the local news would love to hear how the Home Owner Association president runs her little scheme. Karen's face went pale, then red. She snatched her folder back and stormed toward the door. You will regret this, Matt. He leaned against the door frame as she stomped back to her vehicle. I think you are the one who is regretting it already. As Karen's car screeched away, Matt turned back to his phone. That recording was going to be valuable. Matt had expected retaliation from Karen after their last encounter, but even he was surprised by how quickly she escalated things. The very next night, his cameras picked up suspicious movement around his property. 3 figures, Karen and 2 large men dressed in dark outfits, were creeping toward his back door. The same 2 thugs who had tried to vandalize his house earlier. Matt, watching the live feed from his phone, exhaled sharply. So this was how far she was willing to go. She had already lost the legal battle, and now she was resorting to trespassing. He put down his coffee and grabbed a baseball bat. The men picked the lock on the back door, stepping inside carefully while Karen waited outside. Looking around nervously, they clearly thought they were being sneaky, but they had no idea what Matt had prepared. As soon as they entered, a loud alarm blared through the house, followed by Matt's own pre-recorded voice booming from the speakers. Congratulations! You have just broken into private property. Stay where you are. The police have been called. The 2 men panicked, spinning around, unsure of whether to run or hide. Before they could decide, the house went completely black. Matt had cut the power manually from his control panel, plunging them into total darkness. One of the thugs stumbled backward, knocking over a shelf full of paint cans. A thick bucket of white primer splashed all over him, covering his face and suit like something out of a comedy. The second guy flailed in the dark, trying to regain balance, only to step right into a shallow bucket of varnish Matt had deliberately left on the floor. His foot trapped, and as he tried to yank it out, he lost balance and crashed into the kitchen table, sending tools and wood planks flying. Meanwhile, Karen was still outside, unaware of the chaos happening inside. Matt waited in the shadows near the hallway, baseball bat resting on his shoulder. You boys having fun in there? He called out, his voice dripping with mockery. One of the men turned toward the sound of his voice, only to take a direct punch to the gut. He collapsed onto his knees, coughing. The second one finally freed himself from the varnish bucket just in time for Matt to grab him by the back of his shirt and shove him face first into a stack of insulation foam. The thick, sticky material clung to his hair and clothes, making him look like a rejected snowman. Karen, finally realizing something was wrong, cautiously stepped toward the house. What is taking so long? She hissed. At that moment, the front door flew open and one of her men, completely drenched in paint, stumbled out, slipping on the porch steps and landing flat on his back. Karen stared in horror. What the hell happened to you? Before she could react, Matt stepped out behind them, flipping the power back on with a remote switch. The porch lights flooded the area, illuminating the wrecked state of her 2 hired goons, one covered in paint, the other in insulation foam. Nice try, Karen, Matt said, tossing a set of zip ties toward the dazed men on the ground. But you forgot one thing. I'm always one step ahead. Karen's face twisted in fury. You think this is over? She shrieked. Matt pointed toward one of his security cameras blinking ominously in the corner. Oh, it is over, he said with a smirk. And the best part, I got it all on film. Just then, sirens wailed in the distance. Karen's face lost all color. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the night as 2 patrol cars screeched to a stop in Matt's driveway. Officers piled out, hands on their holsters, ready for anything. But what they saw left them momentarily stunned. 2 thugs, completely covered in paint and insulation foam, lying on the porch like a pair of failed burglars from a bad comedy. Karen, standing frozen near her car, instinctively raised her hands. "Officers, this is all a misunderstanding," she blurted out, her voice an octave higher than usual. Matt, arms crossed, gestured toward his security cameras. "No misunderstanding here, officers. These three broke into my house. It is all recorded. Breaking and entering, vandalism, attempted assault, you name it." The lead officer, a burly man with a tired look, turned to the two men on the ground. "Is that true?" The paint-covered thug groaned. "I want my attorney." "Yeah, you're going to need one," the officer muttered, snapping a pair of handcuffs onto his wrists. His partner did the same with the other man, who was still peeling insulation foam off his face. Then the officer turned to Karen. "And you?" Karen straightened up, trying to regain her calm. I had nothing to do with this. These men must have acted on their own." Matt let out a laugh. "Oh yeah? Because I have a recording of you orchestrating this whole thing. You threatened me, and now you were caught red-handed." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She was trapped, and she knew it. The officer sighed. "Karen Waters, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit burglary and harassment. You have the right to remain silent." "This is not fair," Karen screeched as they pulled her hands behind her back. "I was just trying to protect the neighborhood," Matt grinned as they shoved her into the back of the patrol vehicle. "Guess the area is going to have to manage without you." Karen's arrest sent shock waves through the community. News of her crime spread like wildfire, and within days, the homeowner association was under intense legal investigation. At a local hearing, it was ruled that the association had engaged in harassment, intimidation, and fraudulent fines. The decision, a $2,000 fine against the homeowner association for illegal actions. Karen was permanently removed from her position as homeowner association president, and several board members resigned in shame. Many residents, realizing they had been bullied and manipulated for years, pushed for the homeowner association to be dissolved entirely. As for Matt, he finally finished renovating his lake house without anyone interfering. His new pier stood tall, his property was safe, and best of all, there was no more homeowner association breathing down his neck. One afternoon, as he relaxed on his porch with a cold beer, a few neighbors stopped by, this time not to harass him, but to appreciate him. "You really took them down," one man chuckled. "Guess we all owe you for standing up to them." Matt raised his beer in a mock gesture. "Any time. Just do not ask me to join a neighborhood committee." They laughed, and for the first time since moving in, Matt truly felt at peace. The homeowner association was gone, the lake house was his, and calm had finally returned.